So once a year, I take a trip to my favorite camping and fishing spot. It's a pretty great place, out of the way, doesn't have cell phone signal, so it's a great place to be with your family. I bring along with me my trusty inflatable fishing boat, which has a hard floor and fits 4 people or 3 people and a dog. There's even a sail kit you can get for it, which turns it into a portable inflatable sailboat, which is pretty cool. And while it's great, the problem is it does get heavy, especially when you start adding a trolling motor and a battery to it. And so every year, as the kids and I struggle to move this thing back and forth from the camper to the lake in order to go fishing, I swear that next year I'm going to do something to make the whole process a lot easier. Well, today's the day we do something about it. There are a lot of different boat dollies of all different sizes for all different kinds of boats. You can find them in a lot of different online stores, and the prices are all over the place, from $100 to $800 just in a few minutes of searching. I really like the idea of making one that exactly fits my boat, that's lightweight, that can come apart easily and store inside my vehicle, and I think I can make the whole thing pretty inexpensively with PVC pipe. PVC pipe is one of my favorite materials to build with. I'm going to use 1.5 inch PVC pipe for this, and I just happen to have a pile of it left over from a previous project. And since I've been planning on doing this for a few years, I've saved these wheels and tires specifically for this. You can get them for about $5 to $10 at Harbor Freight, or for a little bit more money in the yard department of most other hardware stores. I'm also going to need some nuts and bolts to hold the wheels on, some eye bolts to tie some straps to secure the boat. But other than that, it should be pretty simple, so let's get to it. This is the dolly that I found online that first served as inspiration for wanting to make my own. This one's made of metal. I think it cost a couple $100. So after drawing up a quick plan, I headed to the hardware store with the dog. Everybody loves the dog. He gets pretty spoiled there with treats. I came home with a bunch of PVC parts, including end caps and T's, some eye bolts, and I pulled these wheels out of the garage. And here's what the finished product is going to look like. You can see it changed a little bit from the plan in that it's got these much longer pieces out towards the front. The things I actually ended up using for this project are 2 of those PVC end caps, 8 PVC T's, the eye bolts for the straps, the nuts and bolts for the wheels. There's some washers in there, and I used about 10 to 15 feet of the PVC pipe that I already had. I did use some thread locker, the Loctite red kind that's permanent, on the nuts for the wheels so they wouldn't fall off. And I'd recommend some PVC cement or some screws or bolts or something for holding the various pieces together. You'll see why at the end of the video. In my case, I did have to use some duct tape as a last minute resort. So starting with the legs for the wheels, I decided to have about 11 inches of length for this part. And after cutting 2 pipes that length and attaching some end caps onto the ends, I marked a spot to drill and started drilling a smaller hole first and then a larger 3/8 inch hole to fit the bolts for the wheels through. And then I went bolt, washer, wheel, inserting that into the leg, adding another washer and then a nut on the end. I did put thread locker on these because without it, the nut tended to come off when the wheel was spinning. And on top of each of these legs, placed a T-joint. I didn't glue this because I wanted to be able to take it apart. And then connecting the top of the T to some additional pieces. It's basically just connecting pieces of pipe together into the shape you want. And this is where you can really customize it for the size and shape that you need for the thing you're trying to haul around with it. So now I'm attaching the cross pieces between these 2 parts. This essentially makes the shape of the dolly that I saw online that originally inspired this project. It's pretty small and compact. I can take it apart, or I can leave it all together if I have the space in my trunk for it. For the attachment points for the straps, I chose to do it in the location where the T's were, and so drilling into the T a hole big enough to put the eye bolts through, and then attaching the nuts on the inside with a socket wrench is how I did this. By placing it in the middle of the T like this, I'm able to slide the pipe up around it and it's not exposed at all. With these attachment points, you can either run a long piece of rope through them all so that you secure the front of the boat, the middle of the boat, the end of the boat. I used a couple of straps and ultimately ended up just attaching one on the front set of anchor points and one on the back set of anchor points. Attaching the boat to the dolly is pretty important because you're lifting the boat with the boat's handle or its rope or something else, not really with the dolly itself. So having that strapped down is a big plus. So here's our finished dolly. You can see it rolling pretty well. And the best part is that it comes apart into pieces small enough to pack up in the car and take along. So here's all of the inflatable boat parts in their bags and putting them and the dolly into the camper for the journey. Once I arrived at the campsite, it became really easy to just pull these pieces out, attach the wheel pieces, and then attach these longer pieces onto the back of it. And this joint here might be a place where it would make sense to attach it with some screws or some bolts, or they even have quick release clips that could thread through some holes. Or alternatively, you could put some male and female screw fittings on the ends of these pipes and screw them in rather than tapping them in. There's a lot of different possibilities to improve the strength here. Oops. Yeah, remember when I mentioned that I used duct tape as a last-minute resort? Well, this is why. The connection point between the legs for the wheels and the rest of the frame really needs to be secured in some way. Longer term, I'm going to use some bolts or some quick release fasteners, but at the campsite, what I had was a roll of duct tape. But it was all good. That's why we have duct tape. So after wrapping a few key connection points with duct tape, it was smooth sailing from there. You always gotta have duct tape. In the end, I'm really glad that I did this project. It really made a big difference to not have to haul that boat up and down the ramp. You know what, this thing cost me practically nothing to build, and probably less than an hour's work. It turned out to be a great day. The fishing was fantastic. There he is. First catch of the day. There he is. Fishy, fishy. Let's see if we can get him off. I had time alone with the kids.
No more lugging the boat all the way with your bare hands.
I definitely noticed the difference when it was time to pack up for the day. Making one single trip back to the campground with everything left in the boat, including the heavy car battery and the trolling motor, man, it was nice to be able to just get back to the camper in one trip and be on our way back home. And even though it didn't turn out exactly like I planned, it's just a good reminder that there's always room for improvement. If you have ideas for how you would improve this project, please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Before next year, I'll definitely be making some modifications to this project to make it easier to use. If you'd like me to make a follow-up video showing the modifications I make to this dolly, let me know. I'd be glad to share it. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this project and that it inspires you to make something simple that makes your day a little better as well.